first Monday of a year is not just a date on a calendar. It is a spiritual doorway. Moments like this do not announce themselves with noise, but they carry weight. They are quiet opportunities that respond only to those who understand that life does not move by chance, it moves by instruction. When you wake up on the first Monday of 2026, you are not waking into randomness. You are stepping into a field that is yet unshaped, and the one who speaks first defines what remains. There is a difference between entering a day and commanding a day. Many people wake up and submit to whatever the hours bring. But those who understand spiritual authority know that days respond to alignment, not emotions. The week will not ask you how you feel. It will only obey the strongest voice that addresses it. If you do not give your Monday an instruction, it will receive one from pressure, fear, delay, or past patterns. Commanding does not begin with shouting. It begins with understanding. When light was needed, a word was released. When order was required, a command went forth. In the same way, this first Monday is waiting for clarity. Your words are not motivational phrases. They are instruments. What you declare in alignment with truth becomes a framework the rest of the week must respect. Many people repeat years because they start them casually. They assume change will happen later, but later is governed by now. Patterns are broken when authority is exercised early. When you command this Monday, you are not only speaking to a day, you are confronting cycles that have followed you from year to year. You are announcing that delay, confusion, and spiritual laziness no longer have permission to define your rhythm. There will always be resistance to new beginnings, not because you are wrong, but because change threatens familiar systems. This is why commanding the day matters. You are declaring order before chaos speaks, peace before anxiety rises, clarity before distraction competes for your focus. The moment you align your heart, your words, and your expectations, you invoke laws that go beyond effort. Do not underestimate the power of alignment at the start of a week. What you set in motion today becomes momentum tomorrow. When you command this Monday with faith, you are authorizing grace to work ahead of you. You may not see immediate results, but spiritual laws do not fail. They respond with precision. As this Monday unfolds, walk calmly. Rest does not mean inactivity, it means confidence. You have spoken, you have aligned, you have commanded. Now let the day obey, let the week respond, let the year recognize that someone with understanding has taken responsibility. And from this first Monday of 2026, direction has been established, understanding. Spiritual timing begins with the awareness that not all moments carry the same weight. Some days are ordinary and some days are loaded with authority because they sit at the gate of transition. The first Monday of a year is one of those moments where time itself becomes sensitive to instruction. It is not mystical sentiment, it is alignment. Beginnings are impressionable, they take shape easily, just like wet cement. And whatever presses into them early becomes the pattern others must follow. This is why those who understand spiritual laws do not treat beginnings casually. They recognize that time is not empty, it is responsive. Spiritual timing teaches us that life moves in seasons, and every season responds best when engaged correctly. There are moments when effort yields little, and moments when a single aligned action produces disproportionate results. The tragedy of many lives is not lack of prayer or discipline, but ignorance of timing. They do the right things at the wrong moments and then conclude that principles do not work. But timing is the force multiplier of destiny. When a moment is ripe, it only needs clarity, not struggle. Beginnings carry governing authority. The first instruction given to a system often becomes the default rule. This is why the start of a week, especially the first Monday of a year, matters deeply. It is not just another workday, it is the tone setter. Whatever posture you assume here quietly informs your expectations, decisions, and reactions in the days that follow. If you enter it passively, you unconsciously permit life to lead you. If you enter it intentionally, you assume responsibility for direction. Spiritual timing also demands sensitivity. It requires stillness enough to discern that this moment is asking something from you. Not noise, not anxiety, but alignment. When you recognize a significant moment, you do not rush through it. You steward it. You speak carefully. You decide deliberately. You refuse to carry old patterns into new spaces. This is how transitions become transformations. The power of beginnings is that they listen. They listen to your convictions, your declarations, and your level of understanding. Time itself bends toward authority when authority is exercised with wisdom. When you command a beginning, you are not forcing outcomes. You are positioning laws to work in your favor. You are agreeing with order before disorder has the chance to speak. Understanding that what is done early rarely needs to be corrected later, because moments like this do not repeat themselves often. And when they come, they are invitations that expect response rather than hesitation. Taking responsibility to command outcomes begins with a shift in mindset from reaction to authority. Many people live as though life is something that happens to them, not something they are meant to steward. They wait for circumstances to change, for motivation to arrive, or for favor to appear. But responsibility understands that outcomes respond to instruction more than emotion. Authority is not control over people or events. It is alignment with principles that cause results to follow. Responsibility starts when you realize that observation is not neutral. To watch life unfold without engaging it is still a choice, and usually an expensive one. Every unchallenged pattern eventually becomes a structure. When you refuse to command your outcomes, something else will step in to do it for you, often fear, pressure, or past experiences. Commanding is not arrogance. It is obedience to the understanding that you were designed to influence, not merely endure. Many desire change, but few accept ownership. Ownership requires the humility to admit that some results persist, not because they are impossible to change, but because they have never been confronted. Responsibility does not blame the past, people, or systems. It asks a harder question: what instruction has been missing? Once this question is asked honestly, power returns to the individual, because solutions always follow clarity. Commanding outcomes means refusing to outsource your future to chance. It is the deliberate decision to speak, act, and align with intention. This does not eliminate effort, it gives effort direction. Without responsibility, energy is wasted. With responsibility, even small actions accumulate weight. Life begins to respond differently when it recognizes that you are no longer passive. There is also courage involved in responsibility. When you command, you can no longer hide behind excuses. You stand by your declarations, your disciplines, and your decisions. This is why many avoid authority. It exposes inconsistency. But growth has always demanded visibility. Responsibility sharpens focus and filters distractions, because you know that whatever you allow today becomes permission for tomorrow. When responsibility is embraced early, especially at the beginning of a week or a year, it sets a non-negotiable tone. You are declaring that outcomes will no longer be accidental. You are choosing alignment over drift, intention over survival. This posture attracts clarity, favor, and momentum, not because life becomes easier, but because life recognizes leadership. The moment you accept responsibility to command outcomes, you move from hoping for change to governing direction. Circumstances may still challenge you, but they no longer define you. You become the one who speaks before reacting, decides before drifting, and aligns before complaining, understanding that authority is exercised by those who take ownership early and refuse to live as spectators in their own lives. Aligning words, faith, and authority at the start of a week is one of the most underestimated disciplines in a person's life. Many people speak daily, believe occasionally, and exercise authority rarely, then wonder why their outcomes lack consistency. Alignment is what gives power its direction. When words are spoken without faith, they become noise. When faith exists without words, it remains dormant. When authority is assumed without alignment, it becomes frustration. But when all three converge, life responds. Words are not merely expressions, they are carriers. They reveal what you expect, what you fear, and what you permit. At the beginning of a week, especially a significant one, your words begin to frame the unseen. Long before events manifest, language sets boundaries. This is why careless speech early in a cycle often produces unwanted results later. Alignment requires discipline, the restraint to speak only what you are prepared to stand by. Faith is not optimism, it is conviction anchored in understanding. Faith gives substance to what words announce. Without faith, declarations collapse under pressure. With faith, even quiet words carry weight. At the start of a week, faith functions like a seal. It confirms that what you have spoken is not wishful thinking, but a settled expectation. Faith holds your posture steady when results delay, preventing you from contradicting yourself through doubt. Authority is the right to command outcomes based on alignment, not personality. True authority does not shout its stance. It is recognized in consistency, not volume. Authority responds to structure. When words, faith, and alignment are in agreement, authority is naturally released. You do not beg days to cooperate, you instruct them. Resistance may appear, but it no longer has permission to dominate. The beginning of a week is critical because it is impressionable. Whatever alignment exists at the start quietly governs reactions, decisions, and emotional responses. If your words announce chaos while your faith expects peace, conflict arises within you before life even responds. Alignment removes this internal friction. You move through the week with coherence, not confusion. Many people lose authority not because they lack power, but because they contradict themselves. They declare progress but rehearse failure in private. They claim faith but speak fear under pressure. Alignment demands honesty. It forces you to confront what you truly believe and either elevate your faith or discipline your speech. When alignment is achieved early, momentum becomes natural. You are no longer forcing outcomes, you are permitting systems to work. The weak responds because it recognizes order. This is how command becomes effective, not through effort, but through agreement, understanding that when words, faith, and authority speak the same language, life listens without resistance. Breaking cycles begins with the awareness that repetition is rarely accidental. Patterns persist because they are sustained by unchallenged agreements, spoken or unspoken. Many people assume that cycles are caused by external forces, but more often they are reinforced by internal permissions. Intentional declarations are not motivational statements, they are confrontations. They challenge what has been allowed to continue unchecked and replace it with a higher instruction. Cycles survive on silence and inconsistency. When there is no clear declaration, the past quietly extends itself into the future. This is why obedience matters as much as speech. A declaration without obedience becomes empty sound, but obedience without declaration lacks direction. When both are present, cycles lose their legal ground. You are no longer reacting to what has always happened. You are redefining what is allowed to happen. Intentionality demands clarity. You must know what you are ending before you can establish what is new. Many repeat patterns simply because they have never paused long enough to identify them. Once identified, declarations give language to your decision. They announce that familiar outcomes no longer have access. This is not denial of reality, it is the assertion of authority over it. Obedience is often where cycles finally break. It is easier to speak than to adjust habits, environments, and responses. But cycles are maintained by repeated behaviors, not just repeated thoughts. When obedience follows declaration, you remove the fuel that keeps patterns alive. You begin to respond differently under pressure, make different choices in private, and resist familiar compromises. This is how change becomes sustained rather than emotional. There is usually resistance when keys are challenged. Familiar patterns fight back because they are comfortable, even when they are destructive. This resistance is a sign that authority is being exercised. If nothing resists you, nothing is changing. Intentional declarations create friction with the past, and obedience holds the line until the new pattern stabilizes. Breaking cycles early, especially at the beginning of a week or a year, reduces the strength of resistance. The earlier authority is exercised, the less energy is required to maintain it. What you confront later demands more effort because it has already gained momentum. Early obedience saves strength. When cycles are broken, space is created for new systems to form. Peace replaces anxiety, clarity replaces confusion, and progress replaces stagnation. This does not happen instantly, but it becomes inevitable. Intentional declarations establish boundaries, and obedience enforces them consistently until the old pattern loses relevance. Understanding that lasting transformation occurs not when change is desired, but when authority is exercised repeatedly until the past no longer recognizes itself in your present choices. Engaging divine order is the process of aligning your life with a higher structure that governs peace, clarity, and progress. Chaos is not always loud. Sometimes it shows up as confusion, delay, emotional instability, or repeated disruption. When divine order is absent, effort increases but results decrease. Silencing chaos does not begin with struggle, it begins with alignment. Order is not created by force, it is invited by positioning. Every system responds to order. When priorities are clear, decisions become easier. When direction is defined, distractions lose authority. Divine order establishes hierarchy. It places the right things in the right place at the right time. This is why chaos often appears when boundaries are weak. Without structure, anything can speak and everything competes for attention. Engaging order is the decision to stop allowing disorder to negotiate with your focus. Chaos thrives in ambiguity. The moment clarity enters, confusion loses power. Divine order brings clarity of purpose, clarity of values, and clarity of response. You no longer react emotionally to every disruption because you understand what matters and what does not. This clarity silences internal noise before external resistance even has a chance to manifest. Resistance often appears when order is being restored. This is not a sign of failure but of transition. Systems that benefited from disorder will resist structure. Old habits, toxic environments, and internal fears push back when divine order is engaged. The key is consistency. Order must be maintained, not just introduced. Each aligned decision strengthens the system and weakens the chaos. Silencing chaos also requires authority in thought. Many people speak order but think disorder. They declare peace but rehearse anxiety internally. Divine order demands internal alignment. When your thoughts are structured, your emotions follow. When your inner world is governed, your outer world responds with less resistance. Engaging divine order is not about perfection, it is about position. You do not wait until everything feels right before aligning. You align first, and order produces stability over time. This is why beginnings matter. Introducing order early reduces the need for correction later. What is structured at the start rarely collapses under pressure. When divine order is active, momentum increases without strain. You begin to experience rest, not because challenges disappear, but because chaos no longer dictates your pace. Resistance may still exist, but it loses influence. You move with intention, respond with wisdom, and remain steady under pressure, understanding that order is not merely the absence of chaos, but the presence of a governing structure that enforces peace, clarity, and progress until disorder no longer finds a point of entry in your life. Setting spiritual laws in motion is about understanding that life is governed more by principles than by intentions. Many people desire results without realizing that outcomes follow laws already in place. When a law is activated, it continues to function whether you feel inspired or not. This is why what you initiate at the beginning of a week or a year carries long-term consequences. Early actions do not just produce immediate effects. They establish systems that keep working quietly in the background. Spiritual laws are activated through consistency, alignment, and agreement. When you make certain decisions repeatedly, speak certain truths consistently, and align your actions with those convictions, you set something in motion that no longer depends on constant effort. This is the power of law over labor. Labor requires continuous energy, but law requires only alignment. Once the law is engaged, it governs outcomes with precision. The danger of casual beginnings is that they often activate the wrong laws. When delay, fear, or distraction is tolerated early, it becomes normalized. Over time, it no longer feels like resistance, it feels like life. This is how years pass without progress. Setting spiritual laws intentionally means choosing what will govern you before circumstances decide for you. It is the decision to install order, discipline, faith, and clarity as default responses. What you practice early becomes what you rely on later. When you establish habits of alignment, prayer, focus, and responsibility at the start, they begin to carry you when motivation fades. This is how spiritual laws sustain momentum. You may not always feel strong, but the system you built continues to produce strength. You may not always feel clear, but the structure you establish keeps confusion from taking over. Spiritual laws also work impartially. They do not respond to excuses or emotions. They respond to compliance. This is why awareness matters. Once you understand that your actions are activating something beyond the moment, you become more intentional. You stop seeing small decisions as insignificant. You realize that what you allow daily eventually governs yearly outcomes. When the right laws are set in motion, the year begins to respond differently. Opportunities align, resistance loses intensity, and progress feels less forced. This does not mean challenges disappear, but they no longer derail you. The law you activated carries you through seasons of pressure and rest alike. Establishing these laws early creates predictability of growth. You are no longer guessing what the year will produce because you already know what you have set in motion. Direction becomes clearer, discipline becomes easier, and confidence increases. Because life is no longer random to you. You are living within a framework you deliberately established, and that framework continues to govern your outcomes steadily as time unfolds. Walking in confidence, rest, and expectation after commanding the day is the evidence that authority has truly been exercised. Many people speak boldly but live anxiously, which reveals that their declarations never settle their hearts. True command produces calm. When alignment is complete, striving reduces. You are not relaxed because everything is perfect. You are at rest because direction has been established. Confidence is not loudness or bravado. It is quiet assurance that what has been spoken and aligned will unfold in its time. After commanding the day, confidence keeps you from unnecessary panic when things do not happen instantly. You understand that systems respond progressively, not emotionally. This posture prevents you from undoing your declarations with fear-filled reactions. Rest is often misunderstood as inactivity, but spiritual rest is trust in order. It is the refusal to micromanage outcomes after alignment has been made. When rest is absent, people overreact to minor resistance and exhaust themselves trying to control everything. But when rest is present, you move deliberately. You work, decide, and respond without desperation. Rest protects clarity. Expectation is the posture that sustains momentum. It is not impatience, it is anticipation without pressure. Expectation keeps your perception sharp. You begin to notice opportunities, confirmations, and subtle shifts that you would miss if you were anxious. Life often responds quietly at first, and only those who expect and recognize movement before manifestation becomes obvious. Walking in this posture also disciplines your emotional responses. Not every delay becomes a threat. Not every challenge becomes a sign of failure. You understand that resistance does not cancel authority, it often confirms it. This awareness keeps you steady. You are not easily offended by process because you trust direction. Confidence, rest, and expectation work together. Confidence anchors your identity. Rest stabilizes your emotions, and expectation sharpens your vision. When one is missing, imbalance appears. Confidence without rest becomes arrogance. Rest without expectation becomes passivity. Expectation without confidence becomes anxiety. But when all three are present, movement is sustainable. This posture also influences how others